Hello, everybody, and welcome to Right Here, Right Now, live Buffalo football talk. I'm your host, Alex Brasky, alongside my co-host, Ajay Cybulski, here for the Batavia Daily News and Livingston County News. Each week, we'll discuss Buffalo's favorite football team, along with all the comings and goings from Orchard Park. What's up, AJ? Tell the people what we have in store for them today.
How's it going, Alex? And your nice Bugatti outside One Bills Drive. Nice to see you over here in the 716 where I reside. Sort of. I'm a little far, but I'm still technically the 716. We have a lot to talk about today. Day 2 of Bills mandatory minicamp took place in Buffalo. And again, the highlight, Khalil Shakir was at practice but did not participate, which is obviously big news. And then Keon Coleman made a huge play that really got a lot of eyes on him. So it's good to see the second round rookie. He also signed his rookie contract today, so that's a good sign. And Rasul Douglas spoke with the media today, so I think a couple things stood out from there, and a lot of other things. Some deep balls from the offense. The offense kind of hit their stride today. A struggle for Tyler Bass at some points, like you reported. So a lot to talk about here on day 2, and I'm excited to get right into it.
Yeah, just want to warn the people watching, this is kind of a new setup, obviously, a unique setup for us on the show. So if anything does happen, AJ will carry it. If we do go down for a brief period, I'll be sure to join as soon as I can. But AJ, let's dive right into it, beginning with Khalil Shakir. He exited practice on Tuesday, but was out there today. However, did not participate. He was wearing a sleeve on his left leg, which was the leg apparently which he injured on Tuesday. When he went up, came down a little bit hard, and then exited with trainers. But good to see him out there. He was in good spirits throughout the session. After practice, he was really in good spirits, smiling, laughing, joking around with fellow wide receivers as they worked alongside Josh Allen for some extra work. So obviously good news with Shakir. A lot of Bills fans hit the panic button yesterday when he went down and exited practice, but good to see him out there. It looks like he avoided a long-term injury.
Yeah, obviously, I think if Khalil Shakir had anything serious going on, now, again, I don't know exactly what the injury is. No one really does. But with the leg, compression sleeve on that leg, I think there's not too much of a concern for Shakir out there with his teammates. He posted the picture of him smiling. So obviously, in really good spirits. And that's good to see because you never want to see a guy, especially a person like Shakir, who really worked his tail off last year to get into the starting lineup and into the thick of things on the offensive side of the ball, to suffer an injury this early on in mandatory minicamp would just be a bit of a bummer. So it's good to see that Shakir, again, is out there in good spirits. And if the injury was really that serious, I believe he would not have been out there, and it wouldn't have been that major news that he was out there on the field. So we probably would not have seen Shakir. But again, good to see him, and I'm glad that all is well in Shakir world.
Yeah, I doubt we'll see him again until training camp at the very earliest. Only one more day of mandatory mini camp that the media gets to view tomorrow. Usually the Bills in the past have canceled that Thursday session, but we haven't heard any word that a cancellation is coming. So it does appear as if the Bills are set to practice on Thursday, at least at this point. We'll keep you updated if that is to change, but we'll be back out there tomorrow. I doubt we'll see Shakir participating. But one player we will see participating once again, albeit on a limited basis, is Matt Milano. He was, again, participating during practice today, going through individual drills, along with team drills while they went through walkthrough. Did not participate in full speed team drills, still being held out in that respect. I doubt we'll see him participate in that tomorrow. I'll probably have to wait until training camp. A few other updates in terms of attendance. Missing Tuesday's practice was Dorian Williams. He returned in a limited fashion on Wednesday. Spencer Brown and Mike Edwards also limited for a second consecutive day. Several players absent from the practice field, although they were in attendance. Edifon Ulofoshio, Nicholas Moreau, Balin Spector, Ray Davis, Ty Johnson, Reggie Gilliam. Offensive lineman Will Clapp joined the list of those who missed Wednesday's session. Dawson Knox revealing after practice that Clapp was absent due to family reasons. Also, Christian Benford, who missed Tuesday due to family reasons, was again absent on Wednesday. So Bill's still dealing with a bit of injury trouble, but good that you get Dorian Williams back. Obviously, Milano once again put forth a pretty clean practice in terms of his individual work. No signs of that injury hampering him. And then getting Shakir out there and in good spirits. Kind of all good news after yesterday. It seemed like the world may have come crashing down.
Yeah, Ulofoshio, Morrow, Spector, and then the running backs Davis, Johnson, Gilliam not being there. Obviously, it's not something too major. I think the Bills would have addressed that, and I think they'll obviously be back for camp, but probably precautionary, dealt with some bruises and nicks during voluntary OTAs, and just best to keep them out. With Matt Milano, again, just I think really getting him ready for that training camp, kind of a wound up period for him, get his legs underneath him, get some reps in, put some work on the pads, do some drills, some individual drills, which is always good to see from a guy of his caliber. So all in all, injuries not too concerning. Obviously, great to see Shakira out there, not practicing, but at least on the sideline with his teammates. Milano, again, another limited day. Dorian Williams back out there, which is also a good sign. He needs those reps as he really goes into a big year too, and he could eventually be the predecessor of Matt Milano in a couple of years. So it's good to see him out there as well. And yeah, just good on the injury front, and good to see a couple of guys back out there in the field today.
Now let's get into the action on the field. It's been a struggle for the Bills offense thus far during offseason activities. The end of OTAs really struggling, and then yesterday some sloppiness from Josh Allen and company. But today I thought the offense really rebounded with a solid performance. A lot of big plays from wide receivers, including rookie wide receiver Keon Coleman, went up to secure really a highlight reel catch over Rasul Douglas, probably his most remarkable catch of the offseason thus far. Really using that big frame, athletic ability, leaping ability to go up and pull it away from the Bills' starting cornerback. And for a rookie to already be doing this against a starting caliber player certainly impressed me today, and just adds to the impressive spring that Coleman has put forth. You got to love him winning these contested catches. I know the pads aren't on yet, and there's still a long way to go, but showing these signs early on during the offseason, certainly a good sign for Keon Coleman.
Yeah, it felt like there wasn't that day yet for Keon, whether it was voluntary OTAs or mandatory minicamp or anything stood out. Obviously, he made a couple of grabs and was probably, trying to get on the same page as his quarterback, but really good to see him make a kind of a highlight reel play on a veteran corner that's been in this league. And Douglas is a guy that, he really rebounded his career, and I loved listening to him today, and I'm sure we'll get to that. But Keon Coleman, great day for him. Obviously, like you said, the big touchdown play. And we mentioned yesterday, we said 6 to 8 touchdowns. You know how he gets to that 6 to 8 touchdown total is he makes those contested leaping ability catches in those high, high volume situations. And that's what it's going to come down to with Coleman. And it's good to see him again make those highlight plays, and we'll see where he goes from here.
Another Bills wide receiver to put forth a solid practice. He hasn't put forth a great offseason. I thought he underwhelmed after I declared him my dark horse candidate to make the roster. KJ Hamler came away with perhaps the play of the day today, a deep touchdown pass from Josh Allen, a 50-yard bomb down the left sideline, burned Douglas on the play, ran past him. So a few rough moments for Douglas. He did come back and have some pass breakups and some good plays. So kind of a mixed bag for Douglas today, but Hamler really showing his speed and putting that on display today. And the Bills are in need of a deep threat. You've heard it with Claypool all off season long throughout this spring. If Hamler can start working his way into this conversation, that would certainly be a boon for the Bills, considering his special teams ability. But a big play for him from Josh Allen, and then another long shot wide receiver to make a big play, Brian Thompson, who conversely to Hamler has really shined this spring. I think he's put forth 2 or 3 days now of solid work, and he came away with a deep ball touchdown, a beautifully thrown ball from Shane Buechele down the right sideline, drew a big cheer from the Bills offense. So Brian Thompson, somebody who's certainly a long shot to make this team, an undrafted wide receiver last year, but he's put some good tape on display and making waves day after day here during OTAs and minicamp.
Yeah, it feels like throughout this process of voluntary OTAs and now mandatory minicamp, a lot of these receivers, whether it be Claypool or Justin Shorter or Hamler or Isabella, all these guys kind of buried on the depth chart trying to fight for those last 1 or 2 spots, really are all having their moments. It feels like each kind of practice, there's one guy that really makes a good play, whether it's from Mitch Trubisky or a Josh Allen. So it's interesting to see that these receivers that are really fighting for, a roster spot are really putting together solid days all around. Now, there's been moments like Claypool had a couple rough reps yesterday, but there's also been a lot of positives with him. Same with Hamler. He had a couple drops. Shorter's had his catches and his drops. So it's all about getting these reps, getting some, I would say, chemistry with an all-pro quarterback. Well, he's not an all-pro, but he should have been an all-pro quarterback in Josh Allen. And I just think that the Bills need to continue to work, get those reps in. You see Josh Allen working after practice, getting those reps in today. So I just think that's really important for a unit that's so new, so fresh. And again, a lot of those guys buried on the depth chart are either guys that are younger and are undrafted or late round picks, or they're guys that are trying to bring their career back to life after being highly touted coming out. So again, consistency, consistency, consistency. It's good to see the offense have a good day, but like we said yesterday, consistency is going to be the most important thing for this offense. And I think it starts with Josh Allen and then that run game as well. So it's good to see that they had a good day today, but they need to build on that.
Who's your favorite of these bubble receivers? You have Justin Shorter, kind of a fan favorite, who had a rough day today and kind of has had a rough spring catching the football. Another drop today late during team drills. Is it a KJ Hamler? Is it a Brian Thompson? Is it somebody that we haven't mentioned today? For me, I've already declared it as KJ Hamler. Just the speed is undeniable, and he put it on display today. But Brian Thompson is starting to grow on me. I was a big Tyrell Shavers guy last year. He hasn't really performed. He's had another drop today. I think he's had 2 or 3 drops throughout this spring. So really not following up last offseason with another good offseason. But Brian Thompson starting to grow on me and just putting consecutive days together and working with different quarterbacks between Mitch Trubisky and Shane Buechele and finding a way to come down with big catches, big situations, and relatively deep down the field. Today, the deepest. Brian Thompson really starting to make waves within this room for me anyway.
Yeah, it's tough for me again because I've yet to see these guys in real life. So it's tough for me to really look at who I like. But based off, again, I said yesterday, Chase Claypool is a guy that I'm just rooting for, just based off the fact that, again, Notre Dame guy has all the tangibles. I think how he mentioned earlier in the offseason programs that working on special teams is going to be a focal point. Buying in is going to be a focal point.
How about more of the dark horse guys? More of the Hamlers, the Thompson,
I mean, you have to give you have to give the edge to probably like an Andy Isabella. I mean, he was here last year for a little bit. If you're talking really like the Hamler, Shorter, Shavers, Thompsons, I couldn't tell you. I know KJ Hamler was a 2nd round pick. So, and he made the big play today. So that's huge. And I think if he can continue to build on that, that would be beneficial because, again, I think the Bills are lacking that true like slot presence, that smaller guy. So if you look at the Isabella and Hamblers, I think they have a better chance compared to the Justin Shorters of the world because the Bills have so much height and size in their wide receiver core already with Claypool, Hollins, and Coleman. And then Shakir and Samuel and MVS can kind of do everything. So it's tough for me to see a Justin Shorter at this point. I think he's so far on the outside looking in, plus all the reports from you and several other guys on the beat and girls on the beat that just were basically saying, this guy really isn't putting it together. And it just, to me, it seems like with how everything was handled last year, he sat in the practice squad after the injury and coming off the IR and never really got an opportunity. And now he's doing this in the next season. I just don't really see a path for him right now. Could he make it? Maybe, maybe, who knows? But I would say it's very slim chance just based off the fact they already have all these guys. Claypool's made plays. MVS obviously has a good relationship with Josh Allen already. That's why he signed here. So I just see it hard for Shorter to have a path.
Yeah, I think when you're talking about these guys, it really comes down to whether or not the Bills are going to keep 7 wide receivers. I don't think you're going to see them keep any of these guys as the number 6. I think you're looking for more out of that number 6 wide receiver in terms of offensive contribution. So I think you're looking at Claypool in that number 6 slot there. But if they do keep 7, that would certainly open the door for a Hamler, a Thompson, or perhaps an Isabella. I'm with you. I think Shorter, what he's put on display this spring, I think he's working his way out of the conversation at this point. Same thing with Tyrell Shavers. It was a little bit more crowded to start this spring, but I think it's starting to work itself out down the depth chart, and obviously it will continue to do so over the next several weeks.
And one more thing on Schroeder really quick.
Yeah.
Like his college production, Alex, like he really I mean, his last season in Florida, albeit that's Florida SEC school, 9 games, 29 catches, 577 yards, 2 touchdowns. So not bad. And I know there's players in the NFL that have obviously worked out that have not had the best college production, but just going back to his like whole pre-draft narrative and a lot of people that I trust that really dive into the NFL draft thought Justin Schroeder was a reach and might not even have been drafted. But again, it goes back to that prowess of the Bills. When you get to those later rounds, it's about kind of betting on talent. And like that's why you see, I know Spencer Brown was a 3rd-round pick, but that's still a bit later. And they bet on his talent and his tools. I think with Justin Shorter, they were hoping that that 5-star high school recruit could come back out of him if he was coached the right way in the NFL. And just right now, it just does not seem like it's clicking.
Yeah, as I said, this was one of the most productive days for the Bills offense during this spring off-season period. But it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows for the Bills offense today. A couple plays made by the defense and a couple of disappointing plays made by the offense, including Shorter's drop, also Shaver's drop. And then James Cook had a drop right to kick off team drills. And this is starting to concern me, considering the struggles that he had last year catching the football, seemingly hauling in every difficult catch, but struggling to make the easy catch on touchdowns and denying the Bills chances at adding points. But today, early in team drills, let a ball go right off his hands, bounced high into the air. I don't know how it wasn't intercepted, but James Cook's ability is undeniable. And he was 4th in, we went over it yesterday, 4th in the
Rushing yards.
in scrimmage yards and 6th, I think, in rushing
yards. I think it was 4th. I think it's flipped. Yeah.
Right. Either way, it's such a great season for him last year, but you can't forget about those moments, him dropping the football. And when he continues to do it this spring, it brings back up those concerns and maybe even elevates those concerns at this point. You expect him to, at this point of his career, as he continues to take on added responsibility, maybe start to work some things out. And if he's unable to do so, that's going to be a liability for the Bills on the field, having one of your key contributors on offense just unreliable on the outside in terms of hauling in the football. Not a good sign for James Cook today.
Yeah, and especially when the Bills drafted him, because again, the Devin Singletaries of the world, the Zach Mosses of the world. Now, Zach Moss is still a really good running back, and he's going to have success in this league. Devin Singletary, same thing. He's going to be successful with the Giants. But you look at James Cook, they really brought him in to be a pass catcher. Now, I know he was top 5 in rushing yards last year, and that was a huge deal. He had the Dallas game where really his coming out party where you're like, wow, Josh Allen did not have to do it all by himself, and it was against a top team in the NFC, which was rare, really, in Josh Allen's career. There's never really been a game that really comes to mind where you're like, Josh Allen was led by someone else on the offense. It's either the defense getting a lot of stops and causing havoc, creating turnovers, or Josh Allen being Josh Allen. But you saw James Cook take over that game. I mean, 25 carries, 179 yards, 1 touchdown in the air, 3 catches, 42 yards and 1 touchdown, over 200 total yards just in that game alone. So James Cook needs to be consistent. And and I'll continue to preach that throughout camp and throughout this whole process is Cook has been unreliable at times, and that needs to stop if he's going to continue to get the volume and usage he's getting, because I'm telling you, Ray Davis can catch the ball and so can Ty Johnson. And if James Cook keeps having these mislaps with catching the ball, I really think there's a path for Ray Davis and Ty Johnson. Well, I also think they'll also have a workload to begin with. It can even increase if James Cook cannot hold on to the ball when Josh Allen targets him wherever it is.
Yeah, and one of the lesser known commodities in the running back room that's impressed me this spring and really has caught a number of passes out of the backfield, a couple of good gains in the running game, although it's tough to weigh those without the pads on and the offensive line and defensive line not being able to be as physical as they want to be. But Darrington Evans, his 2nd year with the Bills, he's kind of been all over the field throughout this spring offseason activity period. And I don't know, like you said, the struggles with Cook, I don't know if there's any path for Evans to become a significant contributor this year, but kind of a younger player that they have in the pipeline, somebody who's impressed me this spring. Just I felt like it was worth commenting on.
Yeah, Darrington Evans had a moment in the preseason last year where I think he had a really good outing. And again, it's hard because the running back position is so weird because I do feel like Darrington Evans could go on a roster and be a backup piece and contribute and do well. So, if he doesn't get an opportunity in Buffalo again, he played in Miami last season. He played in 2 games. He had 2 carries for 16 yards. So he did do a little bit last year, but again, nothing really much. He played with Chicago a couple of years, Tennessee a couple of years. So he hasn't really been that much. But again, 2020 third round pick, relatively still a younger back. And last year in the preseason, from what I watched, I really did like Darrington Evans. Now, did I ever think he had a realistic chance of making the roster? No, but I still think that there's an avenue, whether it is on the Bills or elsewhere. I think Darrington Evans is a guy who can contribute on an NFL roster as a running back, and I love his downhill running and his pass catching ability, his speed, all of it. And he loves Bills Mafia. Like, he'll go to Chicago and Miami, and he won't really talk about it. And the playoffs come around, and he's rooting for the Bills and tweeting from his account. So Darrington Evans is a big Bills Mafia guy. Definitely reps Buffalo for someone who hasn't really been here much, but it's pretty cool to see a guy like that buried in the depth chart, appreciating Buffalo and working hard. And like, for someone like you to notice him is pretty cool.
And like I said, I'm not sure if he has a direct path to being a contributor, but certainly something worth noting here. Another player under the radar and kind of maybe a very, very outside chance of ever contributing here in Buffalo. Trey McKitty, the tight end, made a couple of nice plays today. I believe signed by the Bills this offseason, if I'm not mistaken. Just some of these under the radar guys and lesser known commodities, as I said, with Evans shining during this time of year. And this is the time of year for that. You get the second team and the third team out there, 90 players, I think, on the Bills roster right now, have to cut down to 53, of course, by week 1. This is the time for guys like Trey McKitty, Darrington Evans to put some good tape on display and maybe make the Bills start thinking about their future and their future with the team specifically. But McKitty has made a couple of nice plays. The tight end Davidson has made a couple of nice plays as well during this OTA and minicamp period. So a couple of lesser known Bills standing out to me throughout this period. There was also a number of coverage sacks today. I thought the Bills secondary, although there were a number of big plays made against it, they also came through with some nice coverage that led to the whistle being blown or a would-be sack would have happened. But perhaps the most concerning aspect of today's practice happened near the end and in a few different sessions. Kicker Tyler Bass, really a struggle for him today, kicking the ball. Let's see what I had in my notes. 3 of 8 kicking field goals, misses from 45 and 35, missed 2 apiece from those distances, while he made from 50 plus. Sam Martin was the holder for Bass today. Earlier during spring offseason activities, the undrafted free agent Jake Browning, or Jack Browning, I think. Jack or Jake?
Jake.
Are you sure? I think it's Jack.
Jake might be the Jack Browning. Jack Browning, San Diego State. Yep, Jack Browning.
Right. So Browning served as the holder earlier during this offseason, and I think Bass had a really good day, made a couple of deep field goals with the wind at his back. But today, with Sam Martin as his holder, really struggled to put it through the uprights. A couple of ugly kicks, and not really from that deep of distance either. And with no rush coming at him, certainly a concern for Bass, who signed an extension last April, 4 years, $20.4 million. That'll tie him to the team until 2027. Subpar 83% field goal percentage last year. Missed that 44-yarder against the Chiefs. There were no concerns leading into today with Bass. We didn't see much from him throughout OTAs. I think it was only that one day that he really had an extensive kicking period during practice. But to have 8 kicks, or excuse me, what was it? Yeah, 8 kicks and miss 5 of them did not look good today.
Yeah, when you're there's not a lot to take away from these sessions. Again, mandatory minicamp, it's June. But if there is one thing, if you're missing 3 kicks from 45, 35, 35 with no rush, I don't know how the weather was out there today, but it wasn't.
Fine.
It was
crystal clear. It's beautiful. Not a cloud in the sky.
Yeah, so that is a little concerning.
I'm a little sweaty in the car. I'm not going to lie. I got the windows rolled up for audio purposes. If you're watching on the video. I've unrolled the windows a few times, and I've forgotten to mute my microphone while doing it, so maybe you hear it on the audio side as well. But yeah, beautiful day in Orchard Park. No excuse for Bass to miss the field goals.
Yeah, so it's just that is a little concerning. Missed from 45 twice, 35 twice, and then one for two. So yeah, a 3 for 8 kind of day.
I think he missed one from. I think he missed one from 50 plus as well. I think I left that out.
Okay, so yeah, there is some concern there for Bass because he's a guy that again got the contract. He did really well in his first couple seasons with the Bills. I wouldn't say a crazy down year last year, but you end on that kind of note, and it just kind of sits with you for a whole offseason. That's got to be one, tough to deal with, but two, that puts a little bit more pressure on you because you got the contract now, and you're missing a kick in a big moment like that. So I hope Bass can figure it out. I think Sam Martin holding is going to be something that will probably be talked about a little bit more because he seems to have struggled with him a little bit more than in years past with other punters on the Bills roster. So Tyler Bass, I start to get a little bit concerned, but again, it's June, mandatory minicamp, and we should really see what he's made of at training camp. And even tomorrow, let's see how he responds to a bad day if there's practice.
So one more day of minicamp on Thursday. Like I said in the past, they've canceled that day, but it does seem as if they're going to leave that intact, that part of the schedule. So it seems as if we'll be back out here in Orchard Park tomorrow. A long way to go until training camp, so it'll be good to maybe get some last looks at some of these guys before the extended break. It will be good to also separate from these guys for a little while, maybe reflect on what we've seen during OTAs, what we've heard, what we've learned, and really start looking forward to training camp. But I think them leaving this day on the schedule may speak toward just the changeover that they're experiencing throughout the roster. The past several years, they've really had their leadership intact, their starting lineup on both sides of the ball for the most part intact coming into each season. This season, there's so many new pieces on both sides of the ball. I think that's really what's leading Sean McDermott, at least it seems right now, to leaving that Thursday practice on the schedule.
Yeah, reps, continuity, getting to know the guys. Dawson Knox even said today during his press conference that some of the guys he doesn't even really know on the defensive side of the ball because, one, they're on different units, but two, there's a lot of just new faces on that defensive side of the ball. So I think it's going to be huge for this team to get as many days as you can where you're all there and all present to keep working. So I think it's smart that the Bills, if, again, they don't cancel and that doesn't change, I think that's really important and a good sign that the Bills know where they're at. They know that this is kind of a new beginning for this whole organization. I know Sean McDermott's still there. You still got Brandon Beane and Josh Allen, kind of the three-headed horsemen there. That those are the staples of this franchise, but a lot of change. So I think that's huge. And Josh Allen getting those reps in, like John Robert, and a lot of new receivers on the roster. In the comments here, John, thank you for always, by the way, tuning in. If you have not yet, please like, share, subscribe. We greatly appreciate it. We're going to try and keep churning these right here, right now podcasts out. So again, just appreciate it. But yeah, this Bills team is a new team and they have a lot to learn, and getting those reps in while they're all present is going to be very beneficial moving forward. And I think it kind of sends a message too to the players that have been here that are used to the third day being canceled. Like, hey, look, there's a lot more work to do. We got a lot more to learn, and we're not going to be complacent. We're going to work and work and work. And we know our goal still is the same. So I think that's going to be a huge thing. And I'm looking forward to seeing if there's practice, all the takeaways and notes from tomorrow's minicamp session.
And before we get on out of here and before my computer dies, although now I say that and it probably will now. A few more takeaways from today after practice, media availability. Connor McGovern talking about his transition to center and talking about how he was really drafted to be a center, and that's his more natural position, and he's really excited to get back to playing center. He's spoken about how him and Josh Allen have worked through building that chemistry this offseason, and he also mentioned something that I found is interesting, how he was kind of helpful with Mitch Morse last year and making some of the offensive line calls, and he added how he's excited that it's his show this year completely. He did aid in that process, but now fully taking over as the center. I think he's raring to go, and there was kind of some question whether or not the Bills were full steam ahead with him at the position, knowing the draft pick of Cedric Van Pran Granger and what he brings to the table in terms of his talent and just pro-ready ability. But I think McGovern is, like I said, raring to go, and I think they're going to have to pull that position from his cold dead hands.
Yeah, McGovern it was actually fascinating because, again, you mentioned it and we talked about it a little bit that maybe Cedric Van Pran Granger can make a push for that starting center spot. But the confidence that Connor McGovern spoke today, the way they said they're going to run the ball with Joe Brady, they were very fond of Gunnar Joe Brady. All these players with the new hires on the offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator cycle here, they really speak highly of both guys. And again, that's always a good sign. And usually players do, but it's still good to hear from players that you're going into such a pivotal season as a franchise. But yeah, Connor McGovern spoke very confidently about playing the center position like he was almost meant to be there. Like this was the plan all along. It felt like they were like, okay, Connor, after this year, Mitch, you're gone. Connor, you're going to be the center. Like I know that probably wasn't how it went, but that's almost how it felt because of just the confidence and demeanor that McGovern spoke at with the podium. So excited to see how that turns out. Maybe Cedric Van Pran Granger can be a guard competition for David Edwards. Who really knows at this point how that offensive line really shakes out? But again, really excited to see McGovern with this new offensive line ish. I know there'll be a couple new pieces to it and a couple like different spots along the offensive line. But yeah, McGovern is going to be a fascinating player to watch because he hasn't played center in. I mean, when's the last time he played center? I don't even, maybe college, and he said he was drafted to be. So maybe during the
Yes.
combine, maybe he went to the Senior Bowl and played a little bit of center. So it's been a
Yeah,
long
he
time.
has not played center at the pro level.
So it's like for him to say that after playing left guard his whole career in the NFL and to say, "Oh yeah, I can't wait to take this over. I'm very confident." I think Aaron Cromer and that group have a good idea of what Connor McGovern's going to be.
And another takeaway from press availability, and quickly before we move on, it with Van Pran Granger, you look at last year and the health of the Bills' offensive line, and certainly that was the exception, not the rule. It's not going to be the case every year. You're going to need players to come in and play 1, 2, 3, maybe even more games to fill the void left by injury. You see it every year on offensive lines, just the shifting that teams are forced to do, and it certainly wouldn't hurt to have Van Pran Granger at least to start his career coming off the bench and being kind of in that reserve role in case you do see a David Edwards or a McGovern go down throughout the course of a game. But moving on, Dawson Knox also spoke at the podium. He and McGovern sat next to one another at the podium, and I'll tell you what, they look like the Bash brothers from Mighty Ducks. They with the haircut, the facial hair, it looks like they could just kick your ass for a lack of a better phrase.
Which is what they do.
Right. For a living, I guess.
Yeah.
But Knox spoke on Dalton Kincaid and really reiterated the point that I made yesterday and that many people are making throughout this offseason activity period. His confidence level is really showing this year. He kind of came in maybe a little bit timid last year, new surroundings. He's really a nice guy. I'm sure not trying to step on any toes last year, but he's well aware of the significance that he's going to take on within this offense this year, and he's showing it practice in and practice out. And it's certainly encouraging to see his teammate Dawson Knox speak on that specifically when he was asked what he's seen kind of from Kincaid transition from year one to year two. Just said earlier that he thought his head was spinning last year, but seems to be certainly more comfortable in his surroundings at this point of the offseason this year.
Yeah, and that's going to be very important for this Joe Brady offense. And Dustin Knox alluded to it. Like, yeah, I love 12 personnel. That means I'm on the field more. That means we can run any given down or pass any given down. So it really keeps the defense guessing. But Dalton Kincaid, the age is a huge factor too. 24 years old, will be 25 in October. So the maturity speaks there. He's going to have to be ready for this position. He's really going to take a big leap this year. He's going to have to if the Bills want to have success. So that relationship with Knox, I think they can those two players, Dawson Knox dealing with a hand injury last year that kind of stifled that, and you had the Diggs in the room and Gabe Davis who was getting a lot of targets. But now it feels like again, Dalton Kincaid's going to be that guy, and Dawson Knox in that relationship with him. It seems like they've had it since day one. I mean, you go back to Bills Embedded when they were golfing together and they were just, shooting the talk and talking about whatever. So it was a nice nice to see Dawson Knox talking about Dalton Kincaid's maturity, and again, 25 years old. In October, he'll be ready for a bigger role.
Last thing here, last player to have press availability, Rasul Douglas, commented on his absence from OTAs, just said that it's kind of something he always does, says that a player can't really be in that in-season mindset year-round, and sometimes you just need to take a deep breath. And something that he says he does during those off times, whether it be during the off season or maybe the bye week during the season, likes to roller skate, AJ. I know that you're a real athletic guy. I try to be as athletic as possible. Roller skating certainly would suit me a little bit better than ice skating. But it was interesting to hear that from Douglas. I'm not sure how many players are out there roller skating in their free time, but good to get the cardio, I guess. Keep your body in shape and something to keep you active.
Yeah, and I really like too how Douglas spoke about Benford and the relationship he has with him and how important that has been to him and their two kids and how they've kind of talked every other day in the offseason, talking ball, talking life. So that's a huge relationship that those two need to have. And then he also spoke very highly of Elam, who was funny because you think that, oh, Douglas saw a lot of Elam last year, but he was not there, or excuse me, when Douglas was there, Elam was not on the field. So Douglas really hasn't gotten much of Elam until this week, and because he was in a voluntary OTAs, Douglas was not. So I think there's a cool vibe to that, and I think that Douglas is taking steps again in that leadership role. He knows where he's got to be. He's a older guy in this league, 30 years old. He's probably fighting for that contract. He wants that contract. The roller skates thing was obviously funny, and I think that's a cool thing that you probably wouldn't really expect from a defensive back, roller skating. I didn't think that would be. Usually you hear the golfing. A lot of these NFL guys, they golf or they do other things and such. So roller skating was I think a lot of the people, I wasn't there in the room, but I felt like the reaction was like kind of surprised because of the fact that no one really knew that about Douglas, and it was a cool little tidbit he threw in there. But yeah, love Douglas's press conference. Spoke well, talked about the mental toughness of an athlete in terms of going through the season and having that break period where you really get to digest everything and get back on track. So really important to see him back out there. Wants that money. Hopefully he'll get it and he'll perform well this season. He said he wants an All-Pro and a Pro Bowl appearance. So we'll see what he can do.
Yeah, he tried to actually tamp down the contract talk during his press availability. He was asked about it, and he immediately responded, "Wait, it's my contract year." Perhaps playing a little bit possum there. I'm sure the player knows it's his contract year, but didn't want to make a big deal out of it. And with the roller skating, the first question from the media after he said that was, "Do you mean roller blading or skating?" And he was like, "Nah, 4 wheels." And I don't blame him there. Maybe that's even in his contract. Maybe
yeah,
you got to have the 4 wheels on the roller skate rather than the roller blade.
Sorry,
but AJ,
random really quick. Sorry, random.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm into the question. Mavericks or Celtics tonight? I know it's a Bills podcast, but it's NBA Finals, and some of these listeners might have some thoughts on the Celtics Mavs. Who do you have tonight? Big game 3 for the Mavs.
Give me the Mavs, but Kyrie Irving has to show up. Celtics are without Kristaps Porzingis. Jason Tatum, I think 6 for 22 in the last game. So if the Celtics are going to make it 3-0, they're going to need a lot more from Tatum, and I'm expecting more from Irving, and I think the Mavs are going to take it.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that supporting cast needs to show up, and they're at their home court. They know what's on the line. And again, I know experience really doesn't matter, but in some situations, I think it does. Coming back home, Kyrie's been here before, and I think he needs to show up, or else the series is over because they need to win both. If they go back to Boston down 3-1, it's over.
And I guess we'll leave it here, AJ. I'm gonna throw a random one at you, and like I said, hopefully we remain online here, bringing it down to the nitty gritty. I was listening to Sal Capaccio on Matt Bove's podcast. Matt Bove, friend of the show, we had him on previously. Sal Capaccio, future friend of the show, perhaps, but they talked about best sports movies of all time, and I agreed with Matt with Angels in the Outfield. That's one of my all-time favorites, if not my all-time favorite sports movie. Just as a kid growing up, it really had everything. It made you cry, made you laugh, and made you enjoy the competitive aspect of it. How about worst sports movies or worst sports shows of all time, AJ? I have to go with the ESPN product Playmakers from back in the day. You might be a little bit too young to remember that, but kind of about the scandalous aspect of pro football and I really thought they did a poor job with that, and some people were interested and with that scandal part, but really kind of a train wreck of a show. How about you? What's your least favorite or worst sports movie or show of all time?
I, so I'm not a big movie or show guy, so I cannot
I
tell you
know
my.
that's why I threw it at you. I knew it would
I
be
know
tough for you.
I cannot tell you my worst, but I'm just gonna go on a limb here and say my favorite Dodgeball, which I know it's not technically a sports movie, but dodgeball is a sport. Dodgeball is a sport. The
You
Cobras,
can't evade the question. You have to give me the worst.
the worst.
You can't completely turn it around and go best when I'm looking for worst.
Well,
The
I
worst
don't
sports
know.
movie you've ever seen.
I could probably count in my hand how many sports movies I've seen. I mean, Fever Pitch was. I mean, every sports movie I've seen has been good. Fever Pitch is great.
No,
Dodgeball.
I think you're right on par there with worst sports movies of all time. Fever Pitch, certainly within the top 3 worst sports movies of
No,
all time.
that's a great movie. I loved it. Fever Pitch is, and my dad's a Sox fan, so there's some nostalgia there because his dad, my dad are all Sox fans. So that movie just, it's good for me. I liked it.
I'm a Yankees fan, so perhaps that sways my opinion, but
Yeah.
Jimmy Fallon, Drew Barrymore doesn't really get much cornier than that. Really kind of nightmare fuel for me.
Would you believe me if I just look up right now worst sports movies of all time and give you one? Let's see what Google has. Bleacher Report, the top 50 worst sports movies of all time. If I can get to the bottom of this really quick, which I am.
I mean,
Let's see
Fever
what.
Pitch, I get it. If you're a Sox fan, you might like it. If you're a baseball fan, there are kind of some inside stuff there. The life of a baseball fan, life of a season ticket holder. But my God, the storyline and just everything, cheesy city.
All right, so they have the worst sports movie of all time on this as Mr. 3000. Do you have any idea of what that is?
Yes, I actually don't agree with that list. I am a huge Bernie Mac guy. Mr. 3000 is a movie about Bernie Mac. He's a player who I think retired in a bad way before he was able to get his 3000th hit. And then he comes back out of retirement years later when he's really old. He needs like 1 or 2 more hits or something like that. I love that movie. Anything with Bernie Mac, sign me up immediately.
Yeah, I think, and I also forgot one for my favorite because again, I don't have, I don't think I have a worse. They have a Rocky. Rocky is a bad one. Amazing Grace and Chuck. Bad News
Well,
Bears go to Japan.
Rocky, what? Regular Rocky is on that list?
Rocky 5.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I can see that. Rocky 5, I think that's the Tommy Gunn version of Rocky. That I think that was certainly the worst advent of that
But Happy
of that
Gilmore's the
movie
best. Happy
series.
Gilmore's the best. I'm sorry, I missed that. Happy Gilmore is the best. Adam Sandler. That movie is the hockey stick and that whole. That's just a great movie.
We got to bring more pessimism out of you, AJ. I asked you a question about your least favorite sports movie. You immediately go to your favorite. You're incapable of negativity. I don't like it. You
Oh
need more
well,
negativity.
when the Bills are 6-6 again this year, and just like last year, when I was kind of not done with McDermott, but I think there was a right for people, especially the people that were fed up with him. Like I was kind of like, I hear you. Like there's a reason that I think you could say McDermott might be on the hot seat, but then he responded with 5 wins, so that shut everybody up. Again, then the naysayers came back out when he fell to the Chiefs in the playoffs. But now, I'm a critical guy when it comes to football, but in food especially, but movies is just really not my cup of tea.
All right, that's gonna do it here on Right Here, Right Now, live Buffalo Football Talk. Alex Brasky, AJ Cybulski. Be sure to like, subscribe, share the podcast. You can get it on YouTube, anywhere you listen to your podcasts. Anything else, AJ?
That is all. Again, thank you all for tuning in. It's been a fun couple of days here. Again, breaking down mandatory minicamp with Alex and discussing all the takeaways, all the comings and goings from One Bills Drive, as we say every episode on Right Here, Right Now.
All right, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Peace out.